before I started the video, I wanted to show you guys this. Because, like, this is so beautiful. It's like straight out of a movie. But anytime you guys can see me, you won't be able to see the background. And anytime you can see the background, you won't be able to see me as good. But I wanted to make this video about this idea of perspective. So, a lot of people make videos about perspective and how, like, life is based off of your perspective. So, that's so real that life is based off of your perspective, but it goes over our heads because we take it so hippie like. Like, we don't take it literally because it's a literal thing. It's not a metaphor. It's not some whatever. It's that if you're focused on, like, the camera's a good example. The camera's focused on me, it's hard to see the background. But if it focuses on the beautiful background, it's hard to see me. We can't see the whole picture the whole time. You can only look at what you're looking at. You can only focus on what you're focusing on. So, like, if you're focusing on, because I can also see this dirt path that leads out to the river. But, like, and then you can see the hills in the background, right? Like, I'll get a different thing based off of what I'm looking at. I get a different perspective based off of what I'm seeing. Like, right now, there's some wind, so I gotta go over here to get out of the wind for you guys. But by doing that, we lose that perspective of that beautiful background. But we gain this ability to make videos while it's really windy out, right? Like, because I don't have a wind protector for my microphone. But, like, in everything in life, there are lessons. Like, in the simplest things, there's really big ideas or big conclusions or big certain things we become aware of, right? Like, I became aware that when it's really windy, this new microphone that I have, it doesn't have a wind protector, so it gets really bad. But when it's really good, it's really good. So, like, I've had to adapt. And, like, that's just some simple, normal things. Like, well, normal for me because I make videos. So it's like, you don't want a bunch of wind in your video when you're trying to make a video. But you don't want to always just look at one thing. Like, when the video started and you can see the beautiful background, or you can see, like, me, it's like, well, you don't want to always just look at the beautiful background. You don't want to always just look at me. You don't want to always just look at the positive. Sometimes you have to look at the negative. Sometimes you have to look at the dirt before the river. Like, meaning, like, sometimes you have to face the issues. Like, there's that old saying about how, like, I think it's the bulls, like, a herd of bulls will run towards the storm. Like, when there's a storm coming, they'll run towards the storm instead of running away from the storm, because somehow they figured out if you run towards the storm, you get out of the storm faster. So that works with everything. But if you only look to run towards the storm, it starts to fuck up your perspective. So, like, I think Buddha was right when he was talking about balance, and I think everything needs balance. Everything. We need to balance the whole thing, balance ourselves, balance what we do, balance this whole thing, balance your perspective based on how much are you looking at the dirt, how much are you looking at the beautiful, background, how much are you looking at what's in front of you, and how many times are you just looking at the background. Like, it's this thing where if we don't focus our perspective, the perspective is focused on something. Like, even if we're not consciously focusing on something, like when I'm consciously just working on, my books that I'm writing or my music, or I'm like consciously like, oh, I'm going to go down by the river and I'm going to make a video. Like, I'm conscious because I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing. But if I wasn't conscious about doing these things, I'd still be doing things. Like, life still goes, even if you're not controlling where life goes. You're still paying attention to something, even if you're consciously not choosing your perspective. So this is what the thing is, right? Where we can choose what we look at. Like, if it's not windy out here, I'm gonna come back out here. And there's that beauty again. But it's when we don't try to gain control of our minds, that's when people will be like, oh, it's impossible. And when they hear, it's all about your perspective in life, people will be like, they'll roll their eyes and they'll be like, oh, this guy. And it's like, yeah, but that's your perspective. Your perspective is, this guy. Instead of saying, oh, maybe this guy's onto something with this perspective thing, with changing the way you look at things. Instead of trying to change life itself, change your perspective. I've gone through so much bullshit, but it's my perspective that allows me to grow from the bullshit. All the problems and issues that I've had in my life, I've been able to grow and become a better version of myself because of the problems. And I've never tried to avoid problems. Like, because it's like the perspective thing, you could try to avoid problems. That's where people be like, oh, positive thinking or positive whatever, and they'll try to be positive in really horrible times, when in horrible times you're not supposed to necessarily feel positive. You're supposed to feel those horrible times. Like, be present with what you are in, be present in the moment. But in that moment, there's multiple perspectives, and you can have a perspective shift if you choose to. So, like, it's windy, so I gotta keep bouncing back and forth just because I don't want the video to have a bunch of wind in it. But, like, when the wind stops, I come back there for a second, right? Because, oh, and you can still kind of see it from right here. But, like, life is truly based off your perspective. Two people could have the same exact life, but one can say life is awesome, the other one can say life is shitty. Like, and I know it's impossible to put two people in the same exact life, but I'm just saying, if two people could be in the exact same life, live the exact same way, one might hate it and the other one might love it, and it's based off of their mind. It's based off of what they paid attention to while they were in the life, what they focused on, what their attention was towards. Because you can put your attention towards something. Just like you can switch your perspective on something. I went through the issue of, like, I went through the breakup that I went through to, like, 2.5 years ago or whatever, when I went through it, and it was my perspective that allowed me to get through it. It was my perspective that allowed me to grow from it and become a better man because of pain. So many people avoid pain And that's their perspective, is that pain is so bad that it's something that needs to be avoided. But they could change their perspective to saying, no, pain is here to teach a lesson. And when the lesson is learned, the pain will leave. But like, it's just like the way I think about like anxiety, or when I had severe depression where I was self-harming, or where I had all these issues. I look at it like my feelings, my emotions, my whatever was trying to warn me about something. Probably warn me about the way I'm living, warn me about the way I'm doing things, or the way I'm thinking, or the way my perspective was, or what my perspective was like. It was warning me that I should probably change my perspective, because then I could change my life by changing my mind. And then it's like what I mean is, you could be in the same place. My life isn't much different than it was when I was self-harming. The difference is my mind. The difference is the way I think. The difference is the way my perspective is. I've been able to grow and get stronger and become a better, wiser version of me, because I was like, oh, I'm going through these problems. There's nothing I can do about it besides try to learn something from it. And that's really all you can do. You're going through life, shit's gonna happen. And it's your perspective that allows you to either grow from that shit, or that shit will destroy you. And that's just life. And it's all based on our perspective. And you can work on this shit, right? It's like, you can work on your mind. You can work on your perspective. Like, it takes time to actually have a perspective shift. It takes time to actually change. But if it's what you want, then it's what you can have, but it's going to take time and it's going to take effort. Like, you have to put effort in to change your perspective. You have to put effort in to changing your mindset, changing the way you think, changing the way you look at yourself, changing the way you think about yourself, changing your thoughts, healing your anxiety, healing your depression, healing all these issues that you have. It is possible. The problem is that it's hard work. It's work. It's a process. It's something that you have to put effort in and time in and work in. But if you put that work in, you can change your perspective, and that'll change the way you look at life. And it might not change your actual life, but like, it does something, bro. Like, swear to God, because it happened to me. Like, I literally had a perspective shift, and it changed something. I look at life with more beauty. I look at life through the eyes of my soul now. Like, as I'm looking at this water and I'm seeing, I don't know if you guys can see it, something's causing ripples in it. But like, the reflection of the clouds in the water, it's just so fucking beautiful right now. And like, this perspective thing took me years to gain this perspective. Like, you could almost say, like, when I was a kid, right, I looked at the world in a certain way. But then when I went through puberty, I was taught I was taught that that's the wrong way to look at the world. So then we got to look at it more seriously. Then you got to whatever. I said this in a video once, that it's like, adults say that the world looks more gray. Like, as a kid, you come outside, things are just more vibrant. Things are just more, but things are vibrant to me. But I remember when they weren't. So it's like, it takes work to change the way you look at things. It takes work. If you're a cynical, like, just Debbie Downer type of person, you can end up becoming an uplifting type of person. But it just takes work to, like, catch your thoughts. Catch when you're looking at the world in such a like, oh, the world, this life is hell. I've heard so many people say that Earth is hell. It's a horrible place. And I'm like, bro, that's what you need to start looking at the river more often, bro. Start looking at the sky more often. Like, change your perspective. And I mean that literally and metaphorically. That, like, yeah, I don't know. I heard this thing on social media where they said it's not that you have to go to work, it's that you get to go to work. Like, this dude was talking about how you need to change your perspective from, like, it's not that you have to take care of your kids, it's that you are lucky enough to get the chance to take care of your kids, right? It's your perspective that's fucking your life up. It's not really life, because life is just life. And your perspective of it is what's making it great or what's making it bad. Like, you look at the tasks or the jobs or the things that we have to do as negative things, you're going to be like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. But it's like you're missing the perspective of what's the alternative? That you don't get to do that. That's the alternative, right? Like, people are like, oh, I have to drive my car and try. It's like, bro, at least you get to drive a car, you know? Like, it's perspective, and you could change your perspective in, like, because I want to say, like, in a snap, bro, like, but it doesn't take a snap, but it just takes one snap for you to start driving the other way. Like, imagine, like, you're driving a certain way with a certain perspective, but, like, that one snap can make you think, oh, maybe I'm driving the wrong way. Maybe I'm looking at this in the wrong way, right? Like, we just gotta question our thoughts, question our beliefs, question ourselves, right? Like, question our perspective. Why do we have this perspective? Is it really like this, or is it just our perspective? Is life really this bad, or is it just the way I'm looking at it? Is this really as hard as I'm thinking, or am I just bitching and complaining because that's what I always do? Like, is this just... Sometimes you got to be real with yourself, be blunt with yourself, and be like, oh, I could change that. Now that, like, once you become aware of the issue, you can change it. Once you become aware that you're looking at life through a fucked up perspective and that's what's fucking shit up for you and making it seem worse and more worse than it actually is, like, but you just have to recognize it. You have to look at it. But once you look at it, you can change it.